Welcome back to another episode of my Wheel of Time reread on reading the pattern. And this is going to be the last episode for the Eye of the World. So I'll cover chapters 48 through 53, in which so much crazy stuff happens, I can't even give you a pithy summary. So let's just dive in and finish this one.
This video may include spoilers for all Wheel of Time books. If you have not finished reading the series and do not want to be massively spoiled, stop here or proceed at your own risk. After a brief rest in Faldara, they head out into the Blight in search of the Eye of the World. In the Blight, the group attempts to make it into the mountains and over the high passes, but their need is great enough that the Eye of the World finds them before they do. Rand does some rather bewildering traveling on his own, unaware of what or how he is doing, and appears first in Tarwin's Gap, and then maybe Shile Ghul, and then ends up back at the Eye of the World with his friends, where they make their way back to Faldara, and the book comes to an end. Let's review the notebook of our favorite Ogier to remind ourselves what happened in these chapters. Ingtar and 100 lances accompany the group to the border and then leave them reluctantly.
Meanwhile, the Shienaran forces head to Tarwin's Gap, and those who will not fight lead the children to Fal Morin, leaving only a small group to make a last stand at Faldara if need be. While Lan leads Rand and the others north, it gradually becomes unnaturally warmer and damp. As they reach the fringe of the Blight, Lan warns them it's unsafe to touch anything, and the corruption of the trees becomes more and more apparent, along with a growing stench of decay. Mat is openly sick, and the others, aside from Lan and Perrin, are visibly affected.
They must camp for the night, rather than attempting to make it into and over the Mountains of Doom.
They find a place with the broken remnants of 7 towers and a network of lakes, and Moiraine sets up guarding wards, along with a bending of light to hide them from view. Nynaeve declares that she will accompany Egwene to Tar Valon, and Egwene happily tries to convince Rand to join them and to become her warder, though neither of them are sure. Rand cannot sleep, and so he overhears Nynaeve confessing love to Lan, and Lan regretfully denying her.
Rand wakes to the sight of an unslept Nynaeve being comforted by Egwene.
They pack up and move on, and the landscape only grows more unsettling, with trees that move to attack them, along with unnamed screaming creatures.
Lan takes out many of them, along with Moiraine with her fireballs, Mat with his bow and arrow, Rand his sword, and Perrin his axe.
The creatures are scared off by something called a worm, and they ride hard as Lan tells them they must reach the mountains. When he finally decides they aren't going to make it, he prepares to make a stand against the worm pack while the rest of them go on, but Moiraine will not have it. Rand, in his fear, seeks the flame and the void, and suddenly the Blight is gone and replaced by the Green Man's place with its verdant beauty.
The Green Man himself appears, a man shape of vines and leaves, but bigger than an Ogier. He greets them all before leading them towards the Eye of the World. Rand follows the Green Man, uneasy at first, but gradually feeling the peace of the Eye.
The Green Man encourages the women to adorn themselves with flowers, and he tends his garden as they walk. They reach an arched opening in the side of a hill, and all enter, save the Green Man. From a corridor, they enter a vast domed space and find an oval-shaped glowing pool, which Moiraine names the Eye of the World, finally explaining that this is the essence of Saidin, which had been made pure by men and women working together during the breaking, without knowing exactly how it would need to be used. Moiraine leads them back outside, and they are immediately confronted by 2 of the Forsaken.
One, an old skeletal figure, names himself Aginor, and the other, wearing a tight black mask, is named Balthamel and does not speak.
Lan moves to attack, but Aginor tosses him through the air until he strikes the arch and crumples. Nynaeve strikes Aginor with her belt knife, but Balthamel grabs her by the face. Egwene moves to protect her, and Rand knocks her to the ground. Mat and Perrin also stand to defend Nynaeve, and Aginor blocks them with the power. All of the Emmons Fielders stand to face the Forsaken. When the Green Man confronts them as well, Balthamel throws Nynaeve aside to attack. The Green Man is wounded by flame, but he rips Balthamel apart with shoots and creepers, fungus and nettles until nothing remains but a mound. The Green Man is gravely injured, but a seedling appears and rapidly grows into a massive oak where the Green Man once stood.
Moiraine attacks Aginor with the power and tells the others to run.
Egwene does not run until Rand pushes her to. When Aginor starts to follow Egwene, Rand throws a rock to distract him, and then he finally runs when Moiraine begins to scream.
Rand races up a hilltop until he reaches a cliff edge and Aginor catches him up.
As Aginor approaches, Rand thinks desperately there must be some way to escape, and then suddenly he sees a rope of light running off of Aginor. A strand lifts and touches Rand until Rand fills with light and warmth, and Aginor bursts into flames. Rand thinks away until suddenly he is someplace else, a mountain pass surrounded by battle. He sees the humans preparing a last stand against the Shadow Spawn, and suddenly lightning strikes the Draghkar, a wall of flame burns the Trollocs, and the earth rolls, and waves of dirt and rock take out the Trollocs and the Fades. He hears a voice telling him, in all caps, "It is not here. I will take no part. Only the Chosen One can do what must be done, if he will." Rand asks where, and receives no answer except, "Not here." But steps rise in front of him, and Rand climbs, followed by the Court of Light. He climbs until he reaches a door that he remembers, which shatters when he touches it. Inside, a chamber, a fireplace, a mirror, a table, and outside, a striated sky. He has been here before. He sees Baalzamon and speaks to him calmly. He sees that Baalzamon has a black cord, far thicker than his own of light. Baalzamon again tells him to kneel and serve him or be destroyed, but Rand will not give in. Baalzamon shows him figures of Nynaeve and Egwene and his mother, Cariel Thor. Though the figures of Nynaeve and Egwene dissipate, Kari remains and begs Rand to obey Baalzamon and free her. Rand sees her tortured by Fades and screams as a blade of light appears in his hand. With a flash of light, everything but Baalzamon disappears. Rand first attacks Baalzamon's cord with the blade of light and then strikes Baalzamon in his heart. Baalzamon is consumed by flames and Rand's cord disappears, and he falls until he is struck with tremendous force.
Rand becomes aware of light and pain and the charred remains of Aginor.
Rand is sick, but he finds his heron-marked blade and reminds himself who he is. He believes the Dark One is dead and names him Shaitan, and the world seems to lurch. He remembers the name Egwene and runs to try to find her.
He finds Egwene and Nynaeve and Moiraine and slowly remembers who they are.
He tells them Aginor is dead along with the Dark One, but Moiraine stops him from naming the Dark One again. He admits that he burned Baalzamon with the One Power and stops to see how the women react. Egwene and Nynaeve do not turn away, and Moiraine demands to know everything. He tells her all, and Egwene's arms tighten around him. Moiraine tells him she had suspicions from the start, but also she cannot teach him what he needs to know of Saidin. Lan has taken the others back into the cavern. Aside from the women, only Lan knows that it is Rand who channeled all of the power in the eye, and the others need not know yet. Rand wants to know why Moiraine is not going to gentle him, and she tells him the pattern is not done with him yet. Rand reveals what Baalzamon told him about false dragons, and says he will not be used in this way. When the others return, they are all concerned about Rand, and he only tells them that he ran and fell and that Aginor is dead. They examine the objects found at the eye. The remnants of a black and white disc that had been a seal on the Dark One's prison. A silver and gold chest which contains the Horn of Valir, and a long white banner with a red and gold creature, which Moiraine names the Banner of the Dragon.
The garden of the Green Man is all but gone, with only a thin circle of life left around his grave.
As the blight encroaches on what's left of the Green Man's place, Loyal begins to sing, and the oak tree is strengthened. When he is finished, he says that this little space will remain protected from the blight, and they ride on. This time the blight is quiet. When it is time to camp, Nynaeve and Egwene help Moiraine set wards. When they reach Shienar again the next day, they are greeted with new grass and flowers, and news of a victory at Tarwin's Gap. Ingtar greets them sullenly and takes them to Lord Agomar, who tells them of the miracle at Tarwin's Gap when the earth swallowed the shadow spawn, and he himself saw a figure of a man who did what cannot be. Moiraine tells him that the Green Man is dead, the Eye of the World is gone, but that they were victorious. She shows him the Horn of Valyr, but tells him that it cannot be used here. 7 days later, during celebrations, Rand is practicing the sword with Lan, and Egwene finds them and Lan leaves them alone. Rand tells Egwene he will go away, but he does not know where. Moiraine has been avoiding him, and he is angry. They both agree that Rand will never channel again, and Rand tells her he can never go home. Alone in Agomar's private garden, Moiraine is using the blue gem she wears to listen to people far off. She whispers to herself, "The prophecies will be fulfilled. The dragon is reborn."
Let's take a look at all the fascinating details and hints of what is to come in Robert Jordan's master plan.
Nynaeve can sense that the weather is wrong as they approach the Blight, and Rand feels it as well, which seems to be because he is coming into his own use of the power. Also, there's a moment when they are breaking their first camp, and both Nynaeve and Egwene seem to shiver and then look at each other, realizing they're feeling the same thing. This is the two of them sensing Moiraine channeling at that moment. Rand, too, seems to feel something feather-light brush across his mind at that moment, almost as if he should understand what's happening but doesn't quite. So Rand, too, seems to almost be able to sense Moiraine channeling here.
Matt once again uses the old tongue when he is fighting creatures in the Blight, more foreshadowing for the memories he will gain.
Rand is also clearly embracing the source right before the Green Man appears, and the thousands of burning points piercing his bones wink out as soon as the Green Man's place appears. Rand then immediately notices that Nynaeve and Egwene seem to feel the same piece of the place that he does, linking him to them as channelers. When the Green Man greets all of them, he calls Loyal Tree Brother, Perrin Wolf Brother, and Rand Child of the Dragon. Because he comments on Rand's sword, he clearly takes him for an Aiel, but this is also a clue about Rand being the Dragon Reborn as well. There's also a clue here that the people of the dragon are the Aiel, though this is later presented as an unknown part of the prophecies.
When Agenor appears, he quickly drops a lot of knowledge that the seals are weakening, which have allowed him and Balthamel to be freed, along with Ishamael, which is a huge clue about who Baalzamon is.
He also says that he and Balthamel will be given new flesh, since they were ravaged by time, being bound too close to the world in their captivity. And it will actually happen, just as he says. As they're about to die, the next time we see them will be as Osengar and Arengar.
Ishamael, too, likes to drop a lot of information whenever he has a fireside chat with Rand. But in this case, a lot of what he says isn't true, but is meant to sow doubt in Rand.
The one thing he says that is hard to dispute is that he has pulled a lot of strings, one of which is Jain Farstrider. He was the man who brought news of the Eye of the World to the Ogier, and this allowed Loyal to bring the news of it to the group. When we look at it this way, it does seem as though Ishamael wanted to pull Rand, Mat, and Perrin to the Eye. I've been a little bit back and forth on that point in this reread, because Ishamael is far from sane, and a lot of what he says can't be trusted. The question is, why exactly? Bringing Rand to the Eye does accomplish a few things. Agenor and Balthamel are killed, and Ishamael is certainly not sad about that. He couldn't have known that would happen, since Agenor says it was Mat's dagger that allowed them to track the group to the Eye. And that's not something Ishamael could have known about ahead of time, when he was supposedly laying the seeds for this plot. The confrontation at the Eye does reveal that it is Rand who was the one that Ishamael was looking for, but that would have happened eventually anyway. Perhaps Ishamael wanted Rand to use up the power at the Eye before he really knew what he was doing. Maybe the main point was just bringing Rand face to face with him. Overall, I do think Ishamael pulled some strings here, but I also think there was some pattern involvement as well, and Ishamael is probably not as in control as he thinks he is.
As for the cord of light, we see first running off of Aginor and then Rand. This seems to be a cord of saidin, which is coming from the Eye of the World. Later we see a black cord running off of Baalzamon, and we can guess that this is coming from the true power, which is the source directly from the Dark One.
There are seeds of Rand's issues with women and Aes Sedai in these chapters. Multiple times he thinks to himself, all women are Aes Sedai, and it's clearly with distrust. He laments to himself that Egwene will be one of them after he learns that he can channel. Also, Baalzamon uses images of women that Rand cares about, Nynaeve, Egwene, and Kari, to torture him. This hints at the root of Rand's refusal to hurt women, which will eventually become a huge problem for him. At the end here, Rand believes he has killed the Dark One, but there are a lot of little hints here that he is wrong. When Rand names the Dark One, the world seems to lurch, seems like a warning. Moiraine clearly does not believe it, as she tells him not to name the Dark One again. She also mentions that if more of the Forsaken had been freed, they would have seen them. Well, Rand did see someone, although Moiraine may not be sure of it at this point. This is after Aginor has already told them that Ishamael has been freed as well. At the very end, Lan tells Rand that he cannot become a Blade Master in a few weeks. Well, he doesn't exactly, but he does earn the status by the end of the next book. Rand also says that he will never touch saidin again, even if he has to cut off his own hand. Foreshadowing for the loss of his hand in Knife of Dreams.
Let's discuss the central themes and focal points that these chapters are woven around.
I want to touch on the idea that the creator takes no direct part in the events of the world. We know that the only thing preventing the Dark One from affecting the world directly is being bound in his prison. On the other hand, we are deliberately told very little about the creator, but we do know that the creator is not going to step in and stop the Dark One, that it is the Dragon Reborn who will do that if anyone can. With that in mind, it is relevant then this moment that Rand hears this all caps voice, which has spawned endless theorizing. A voice tells him, "I will take no part. Only the Chosen One can do what must be done if he will." I will say up front, there is no definitive answer about who or what this is. We do later find out that the Dark One also talks in a all caps voice. But does this sound like what the Dark One would say at this moment? Or more importantly, do we have any reason to believe that the Dark One could talk to someone who isn't directly at Shaial Ghul at this time? No. So it doesn't seem likely that this is the Dark One. Though it's possible, and if so, it seems like the Dark One is trying to present as someone else, like the creator. Personally, I'm of the opinion that this voice probably is the creator, or at least some manifestation of the creator, but we will never know because Robert Jordan did not want to get into specifics on that subject. So it remains a mysterious moment, though I do take it as possible indication that the creator is taking a small hand here in telling Rand that he does not belong at Tarwin's Gap, not here. Then, when these steps appear out of total darkness, we have the question, did Rand do that unknowingly? Did Ishamael do it? Did the creator do it? We'll never know that either. Overall, I do believe there's some indication to believe that the creator is not 100% hands-off, and this might become relevant in understanding later mysteries in the series. There are a couple other huge themes in the series that are relevant here at the end that I want to at least touch on. One is the question of choice versus no choice. Ishamael wants Rand to believe that he has no choice, and Rand refuses to give in to this. He specifically says that there are choices other than to give in to him, and that the wheel weaves the pattern, not Ba'alzamon. To me, it seems crucial that Rand continue to defy the forces that are trying to control him. Rand's choices are important, and it may well be that his insistence on not giving in to Ishamael or Aes Sedai or even the pattern as much as possible, that is what might make the difference for him in the end. The idea of the dragon being one with the land is first on display here. After Rand defeats Ishamael, we immediately see changes in the Blight, spring coming to the borderlands, and my favorite bit, with the broken seven towers of Malkir appearing taller to Rand, and he can almost see them as if they would be whole with the golden crane banner flying in the wind. That last part could be seen as foreshadowing for something to come later, but I also see these overall as signs of Rand's victory manifesting in the world. The towers aren't actually whole yet, but they might truly be taller as the Blight is diminished. This could be taken as the Dark One's influence in the world being dealt a blow, and that explains these changes in the world. But the only thing that's really happened is that Rand has gained in power. And so to me, that seems to be what's making the bigger difference.
Let's break down the characters and their defining moments in these chapters.
Once again, in this segment, I want to at least touch on all of the major characters. First up is the huge moment between Lan and Nynaeve that Rand overhears. Nynaeve is boldly confessing her feelings to Lan, though trying to do so without actually coming out and saying she wants to marry him, since apparently that would be shaming to her. Lan essentially admits he loves her as well, calling her remarkable, beautiful, and fierce.
In saying, "I will hate the man you choose because he is not me, and love him if he makes you smile," he is telling her he wants to be with her, but that he prizes her happiness above his desire, and he believes he cannot make her happy.
On the other hand, he is being a bit ridiculous here and not even considering Nynaeve's own choice. He isn't giving her the chance to join her fight to his. He seems to believe her capable, but at the same time he also seems to think that he would need to give up his own fight in order to be with her, and he's not willing to do so. He's wrong, of course, and she will eventually convince him of this. But people in love are often stupid, and so I'll let that be his excuse here. As for Nynaeve, we see how fiercely she continues to care for him despite his rejection when she attacks a Forsaken who has harmed Lan. Nerves of steel that woman has. We can honestly say the same for all of the Emond's Fielders, as they all rise to defend her, despite the minuscule chance they stand against any of the Forsaken. I also want to point out Perrin specifically, multiple times, is shown to have become as unaffected by the Blight as Lan is. The only difference for him is his newfound connection to the wolves. He hasn't embraced his ability yet. He's not currently in direct communication with the wolves, but they still seem to be providing him with some kind of protection. Mat, on the other hand, is probably the most relatable, in that he allows himself to be openly sick by the horrors of the Blight, while the others refuse to give in. We would all probably be Mat in this scenario, and at least he continues to go on as the rest of them do, though he does complain twice as much as the rest. Egwene deserves a shout out for her continuing to provide comfort and unflinching support to Rand after she learns of his ability to channel. Their relationship will evolve and be strained to the breaking point, but at least we can say her initial response was to stand by him, and that says a lot. There is this small moment, though, where he offers to help her stand up, and she brushes him aside to stand herself. It shows that she may love him, but she does not want him to protect her. She has to find her own strength. Loyal, my lovely Ogier, you warm my heart with your need to preserve a place of beauty for the Green Man's grave. Sing on, Tree Brother. Then Moiraine shows what a badass she is when she holds off Aginor, and then just casually mentions that he was close in power to Luz Theron and Ishamael. Taishar Karian. And then my favorite moments for Rand in these chapters all have to do with him digging deep to the stony, stubborn soil of the two rivers to find his strength, to fight in the Blight, to stand when Aginor wants him to kneel, and to defy Ishamael. This, to me, shows who Rand really is.
Let's talk about what we need to know about the Dark One and all of his minions and followers.
The main thing I want to cover here is the Blight itself, since it makes a bigger impression than our three Forsaken. Ishamael, we are almost used to his ravings at this point. Aginor and Balthamel are unsettling to look at, but ultimately all of our group are able to withstand them. The Green Man just rips Balthamel to shreds, while Rain holds off Aginor and Rand kills him easily. The Blight, though, and the way Robert Jordan describes it, are incredibly evocative.
A touch of something as benign seeming as a stick can be deadly. Every living thing looks and smells rotten, the leaves streaked and spotted unnaturally with yellow, black, and red. The trees become crippled, oozing with a pus-like liquid.
The way we are gradually introduced to increasing horrors is very effective. The creatures they manage to fight off are scared of worms, and worms are scared of whatever lives in the mountain passes. The way that Robert Jordan impresses upon us how grotesque and overwhelming the land itself is on this first impression really sticks with me.
And now, let's find a little levity amidst the darkness.
There's precious little humor to be found in this ending. It may be triumphant in a way, but most of all, I find it unsettling. I will give one shout out to Matt here, who on the first night they camp in the Blight wants to stick his head in the lake, and then some huge horrific creature breaks the surface, and he follows up with, "On second thought, I like it right here just fine." But the main source of light I find is Loyal. The way that he's embarrassed when he has to undo his shirt when it gets hot, the way he's constantly groaning at each new horror of the Blight and Rand wishes he wouldn't. Then after the Battle of the Eye, with his ears twitching violently when he says,
Traveling with Ta'Viren has turned out to be even more interesting than I expected. If it becomes any more interesting, I will go back to studying Shangtai immediately, confess everything to Elder Hammond, and never leave my books again.
And finally, when Lan tells him he is a good man, and he replies, "I will take that as a compliment, but I do not know what Elder Hammond would say." We made it to the end of book 1, only 13 or 14 more to go. But I'm pacing myself. So I do want to let you know that I am going to take some time to script probably several of these reread videos for The Great Hunt before I start filming any. So don't expect to see a new reread video right away, but they are coming. In the meantime, leave me a comment and give me some feedback on how this series of reread videos has gone for you. What did you love or not love? Are there things you'd like to see added or done differently? Now's an opportunity to try to make sure these reread videos are providing what fans of the series would like to see. More immediately, I will be putting out more videos for the Wheel of Time TV show, so be sure to stick around, subscribe, hit the bell, and enable notifications so you don't miss anything. Thank you so much to all of my viewers. I hope that this channel can continue to grow, and I'd love to hear from all of you about what kinds of new content you're hoping to see. Let me know, and I'll see you next time.